The threat of a government shutdown approaching fast. My colleague John Carl is back in the studio with the very latest. John?
Thanks, Martha. The shutdown showdown is on, and there is the clock. 8 days till the government runs out of money, and right after that, the U.S. government faces default unless Congress raises the debt ceiling. Big battles ahead, and we've got two of the key players right here. But first, we asked ABC's Jeff Zeleny to break it all down for us. Call it Washington's own twisted reality show.
And the Emmy goes to...
Tonight in L.A., the Emmys will celebrate the best dramas, the best comedies.
I want to thank me for hiring me as a director.
But if you want both, leave Hollywood and head straight to Washington, where a budget showdown and fear of a government shutdown is the latest and most dysfunctional reality show around.
I pretty much disagree with everything you say and do.
The award for leading actor, Senator Ted Cruz.
I will do everything necessary to defund Obamacare.
The Texas firebrand, trying to make his mark, tying health care to the budget fight.
Defund Obamacare now.
Friday, the House agreed, voting to approve money to keep the government running, only if Obamacare funds are scrapped. Cruz and conservatives pushed the plan with Speaker John Boehner, who gets the award for Best Supporting Actor. Here he is with Diane Sawyer last year.
Obamacare is the law of the land.
But now, a different tune.
It's time for us to say no.
I'm sorry, Mr. President, but I will not do that.
But that move has sparked a rift in this Republican Party.
But I can tell you, in the United States Senate, we will not repeal or defund Obamacare. We will not. And to think we can is not rational.
Then another battle is brewing over the debt limit, which is coming in mid-October. The president warning of dire consequences.
If we fail to increase the debt limit, we would send our economy into a tailspin.
This is my office. I'm the president.
A Washington cliffhanger awaits.
Oh, did you guys want to stay another hour?
For this week, Jeff Zeleny, ABC News, Capitol Hill.
And joining us now, Maryland Congressman Chris Van Hollen, the top Democrat on the Budget Committee, and Georgia Republican Tom Graves, who's been leading the fight in the House to defund Obamacare. So thank you both for joining us. Congressman Graves, help me understand how far you are willing to push here. If the Senate does not go along with this in 8 days, are you still going to insist that you will not support funding for the government unless Obamacare is defunded?
Well, John, thanks for letting me join you this morning. This is my inaugural Sunday show, so it's good to start it here. What is real, and I know this was about reality TV we saw a minute ago, is that the American families all across our country are facing the real impacts and negative impacts, harmful impacts from the implementation of Obamacare. So we do have 8 days to reach a resolution on this. And, you know, I proposed an idea that kept the government operating and open for an entire year while delaying and defunding Obamacare for a year so that we could work out those differences. But the realness of all of this, whether it's in my district or in Chris's district or anywhere else, is that American families are feeling the pain.
But my question was how far are you willing to push? If the Senate does not go along in 8 days, are you still going to insist no funding for the government unless Obamacare is defunded?
We are united around a very simple goal, and that is keeping the government open while protecting our constituents from the harmful effects of Obamacare. So we were going to do everything we can to protect our constituents, and we have 8 days to do that. And my hope is that the Senate is going to act in a very positive way, because you've skipped a very important step. Your assumption is the Senate will not defund Obamacare, will not delay. That is your assumption.
All right, we're going to get Congressman Van Hollen on this, but I want to bring to you something that the Wall Street Journal, this is an editorial page that supports your view on the health care law, but thinks that the way you're going about this is just crazy. Here's what they wrote. Perhaps the only war strategizing more inept than President Obama's on Syria are GOP plans for the budget hostilities this autumn. Republicans are fracturing over tactics and even over the nature of political reality, which may let Mr. Obama outwit them like a domestic Vladimir Putin. I mean, this is not going to work, is it?
I mean, that's their opinion. That's an editorial, clearly, is what that is. But when you read the Chicago Tribune, they say delay and stop Obamacare. Warren Buffett says stop it now, start over. You have the 3 top leaders of the unions in our country saying this is not going to work. It's going to create a new underclass of workers that are under 30 hours.
They're
it's
not
not just
your
Republicans.
Position, just to be clear.
It's not just Republicans. This is widespread. Even the Baltimore Sun says that it's going to cause 25% increase in rates in Chris's district.
John, look, there's a reason Republican senators like Senator McCain and others are saying this is absolutely insane, because the Republican proposition here is they're going to shut down the government if they can't deny health care to millions of Americans, including millions of kids who are right now benefiting from the Affordable Care Act, kids with pre-existing conditions who can no longer be thrown off of their insurance policies. That's right now. They're saying we're going to shut down the government unless we get rid of those protections, number one. Number two, I think Tom and his colleagues have to explain to the American people how they voted for a budget that includes all the Medicare savings from Obamacare, that includes the same level of revenue generated from Obamacare, and in fact would not even balance in 10 years if not for the Affordable Care Act. So here they're running around the country on the one hand saying, let's get rid of the Affordable Care Act, and yet they passed a budget that only comes to balance because of it. And that's misleading, and that's a hoax, and they should explain that to the American people, how you're trying to do 2 things at one time.
Well, I mean, it's clear that I was in my district during August listening to my constituents.
No, look, I asked a question
halls.
about the budget, Tom. You guys passed a budget that assumes big parts of Obamacare are kept. And then you're going around and
our budget also assumed that it would not be in effect as well.
No,
but how do you explain to your constituents
that's not the case. You assume all the Medicare savings in your budget.
But yesterday, John, I guess Friday, Chris voted to impose 25% increase in premiums on his constituents. And I wonder how do you go back to your constituents and say you're willing to do that?
Whenever there's a flood these days, you guys in the Republican Party say that's Obamacare. What I find interesting, I think you all should.
Let me get in here for just a second, because I want to ask you, Congressman Van Hollen. We had a poll this week, ABC News, Washington Post, that showed the health care law is about as unpopular as it's ever been. Let's look at some of the numbers. 52% say they oppose the law. 55% disapprove with the way it's being implemented. And only 11% in this ABC Washington Post poll say they believe that Obamacare is going to make their health care better.
Hey, John, the biggest poll we had on this was the last election. This was one of the most heavily litigated issues in the last election.
You guys won the last election, no doubt.
And President Obama said that he was going to implement the Affordable Care Act, and Mitt Romney said he was going to defund it. And the president won on that issue and other issues. I'm not surprised there's a lot of confusion. These guys have been running around the country demagoguing, scaremongering on this issue. They're not afraid that it's going to be unsuccessful. They're afraid it's going to be successful, and all that misinformation will be shown to be a fraud.
Something very important has happened since the president did win the election, and that he himself has amended, delayed, or repealed 19 components of his very own law. So if it's so good for America, then why is he delaying it for his friends in big business? Why is he delaying it for members of Congress like yourself? Why is he doing it? It's so good,
this is important because
they're
only 5% of businesses are even affected by this law.
So only the ones with big PAC checks.
Number two, let me ask you
this. But he's not going to provide protection for all of them.
You guys don't want to provide affordable health care under this system for millions of Americans, but you have a plan to take millions of people in Medicare and put them into Obamacare system. That's what you're proposing to do.
To continue the debate.
It's astounding.
I've got a very quick thing for you.
Yes, sir.
Is John Boehner going to be back as Speaker of the House in the next Congress?
I believe he will be.
You believe he will be. All right. Thank you very much, Chris Van Hollen, Tom Graves.
Right.
Appreciate it.